Recapping week 11, City demolished United in the Manchester derby. We had West Ham with the upset win over Liverpool, I think it's fair to say, even though they've had a great start to the season. And as I mentioned there, a couple of managers have lost their jobs as well. But Nick, let's focus on the Manchester derby first. I mean, what did we learn about United and what did we learn about City, both from a negative and a positive in that order? Because there was an awful lot on show at Old Trafford that really reinforced probably what we already knew about both these teams, right? It just underlined, how bad United are right now and how good City are when everything clicks for them.
So I don't want to sound too dismissive because I've done that a lot with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But this is the second time they've played a hated rival in a few weeks. The second time the rival had the game well in hand and couldn't be bothered to really put their foot down on the gas. Like, it doesn't mean as much to destroy Man United at home anymore. And I think that is the indictment on what they do. I mean, honestly, did you go away from that game thinking, wow, that doesn't happen at Old Trafford? No, you went away thinking, where's the mystique? So that's the biggest thing I took away. What's happened to them? I know Varane didn't play, and I think he's the key to their team. But I mean, honestly, that game happened. The only team on television in the United States for the duration of the 1990s, because that's how important they were, is now I guess they can lose at home to the good teams. That's what happens.
Yeah, true. I mean, to me, that was almost as embarrassing, or if not more embarrassing, than the defeat to Liverpool, because Man City could have won by 5 or 6. And at least against Liverpool, Man United had a few chances. Bruno Fernandes should have scored early. Ronaldo had a goal chalked off for just being offside. But there was nothing against City. I mean, apart from a Maguire header early on from a free kick, they created nothing. They were scared. They didn't know what to do with the 5-3-2 is what it became, and Luke Shaw as a left wing back, Wan-Bissaka as a right wing back, just didn't know what to do, didn't know how to cope with Man City's fullbacks and the fluid front four, if you like. And at sometimes when the ball was coming into the box, it was 4-on-4 in the box with Foden, obviously De Bruyne, Gabriel Jesus, Bernardo Silva, all just flooding into the box, and it really just underlined to me all of United's defensive deficiencies. And of course, Varane was missing. That was huge. But it just really summed up for me how far away United are from being genuine contenders. And a few months ago, lads, when they had a good start to the season and Ronaldo was scoring, we were thinking, all right, they're in the mix here. But Andy, what were your thoughts on the Manchester derby? Did it really just underline how far away they are now under Solskjaer?
Yeah, it did. And I never thought that, for the record. I said when Ronaldo was brought in, I think this puts them farther from being title contenders or title winners than it puts them closer this season specifically, and obviously for the long term, given the age and everything. This game, the thing that really stood out to me, 4 touches inside the opponent's penalty area for Manchester United in a game of this magnitude, in a game of this importance, in a game against a rival like Manchester City, to not show up, it underlined the biggest issue to me, and that is that there is no plan at Manchester United. We've known that there is no plan from the transfer side of things. It's just, what's the best player that's available this summer? We'll go out and sign him. What's the best available player in January? We'll go sign him, without thought about how they fit together, or are you getting a good deal? All of those things aside, there is no plan on the touchline from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. The plan right now is, don't get fired. Just do enough to keep my job tomorrow and the next game and the game after that. And that is not a plan. That is not a formula that can be replicated from game to game. And so that's why you get United. They'll have a couple games where they look okay against lesser opposition. They'll have a couple games against really good opposition where they just look horrendous, because there is no plan. They have the talent to beat teams that aren't as good as them, but they're nowhere near being able to even play with. They couldn't play with Manchester City on the weekend, let alone try to beat them. They didn't belong on the same field as that team or Liverpool, and we might see it again when they play the likes of Chelsea. It's I don't know that they're top 4 this season. Like, I'm to that point where I kind of just think that they're not. I think West Ham are better than them. I think Tottenham under Conte can figure some things out. I think even Arsenal, if they could just get a little balance, I think are better positioned for this season than United. I just think it's a really, really bad spot that they're in.
Nick, that being said, then, how risky is it for United to stick with Solskjaer for the rest of the season, because reports are out there saying that he's under no immediate threat whatsoever. He's going to be in charge after the international break. When you look around, there's not really that many managers that are available now. Conte was the obvious one. Spurs snapped him up. They're looking like they're going to be on an upward trajectory in the next few months. So this is a really big risk, isn't it, to give Solskjaer the reins for what it looks like the rest of the season and trust him that, okay, worst case scenario, we're going to finish in the top 4, because they're 9 points off the top of the table after 11 games of the season. As Andy mentioned, they've got Chelsea away coming up soon. They haven't got an easy run of games. So it's a really big risk, isn't it, for Manchester United to put all their faith in Solskjaer to try and turn this around. When you look at it, is it possible for them to do that? Potentially. They've had some big comebacks and big winning runs under him, but it feels very different now to the last few seasons. It feels like they've been figured out. They're low on confidence. And the players that were stepping up, like Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford and others, just aren't doing it, right? So how worried are you about United sticking with Solskjaer if that is the case?
I'm worried because what's going to happen the first time there's a game where, and this will happen, where it'll be clear that Marcus Rashford is a better idea over Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't think Solskjaer has the weight in that room to make that call right now. Maybe if they were winning, that might be able to go over with some of the team. But you see Ronaldo's relationship with Bruno and all that. It's just, I think they're largely going to be fine because of talent. But I think United is living in this world where they think they have a situation like when Zidane first took over Real Madrid, and everybody was saying, yeah, but does he have a handle on the tactics? And it turned out he kind of did. But realizing that Solskjaer isn't Zidane, and who else is there? I think the only way he doesn't last is if the pure embarrassments continue. Like if they keep being decidedly terrible and the players start to speak out maybe a little bit or hint at their displeasure, or if something happens like Pochettino becomes available. I'm not saying I see that happening, but someone of that ilk becomes available, because right now you look around and I mean this Conte move seems like a masterstroke, and it's not a masterstroke. It's just Man United messing up.
Very true. Talking about the other end of the spectrum, a club that's definitely not messing up and doing all the right things, West Ham United. They're up to 3rd in the Premier League table, jumped above Liverpool, beat them 3-2. David Moyes was smiling. There was more bubbles I've ever seen in my life floating around the London Stadium after that victory. Andy, you love West Ham, I'm pretty sure, this season, the way they've approached this. Antonio causing problems. I mean, this is no fluke, right? This has been a long time in the making now. Over the last 6 to 8 months, they've been building momentum. Moyes has done an absolutely fantastic job to galvanize this team on the pitch and the club off it as well.
Yeah, so I spent a little time in the last week thinking about something that I mentioned in passing on here last week, and so I have a little bit more to add to it. This is the next rising team. Everton did it for a time under David Moyes. Coincidentally, Tottenham have done it. Arsenal have done it after a great period. They had a down period, and then they rose again. And all of those teams have fallen, though. And so this is just a cyclical thing. And West Ham are now that team at the moment. And so you can kind of look back at the last couple of years. If you look at this squad, the way that it's been built and pieced together, it wasn't done in one window. It wasn't done in one season. This is 3 or 4 years of a project culminating now and finally coming together and seeing the fruits of that labor on the field, and the fact that they've got the right manager in place for the right players with that right mentality, the hard work defensively. I know they conceded a couple on the weekend to Liverpool, but it does not faze them. Nothing breaks them. Mentally, they are very, very strong, maybe the strongest of any team in the league, because they are the ones that have to deal with the being the underdog and expected to slip up. Everybody is looking these big games for West Ham now. When are they going to lose? Who's going to beat them? When's this going to stop? And they just keep finding a way to do it.
Yeah, they got Chelsea coming up at home in a few weeks' time. Really looking forward to that one. That's going to be an absolute, well, it could be a title contending clash, I suppose. David Moyes says they're not in the title race. He's moving all that talk to one side, but he did kind of challenge West Ham. You know what? We were only a few points off the top 4 last season, so we weren't that far away. Let's do it. Let's go again. So that would be something. What I love about them is the spine of the team. Antonio, Declan Rice, Kurt Zouma, Fabianski, solid, reliable, experience. And Declan Rice plays like his experience. You forget how young he is, but he's been incredible. I mean, I think the most informed midfielder in the Premier League by quite a stretch at the moment, and just week in, week out, dominating games and taking his game to a level I don't think many people thought he had. So it's been sensational. As I said, off the pitch, it's great to see the London Stadium rocking. It kind of reminded me of the old Upton Park, and used to love going there and that atmosphere when the fans were on top of opposing teams. But that hasn't been the case. Usually they've been on their own owners and their own team since they moved to the London Stadium. But the win against Liverpool, the way it happened, the way they played, the way the crowd reacted, it really felt like West Ham, something special is building there. Talking about something special building, Arsenal, they won once again against Watford. A bit of a tricky game for Arsenal, but once again, another clean sheet. Gabriel, Ben White, Ramsdale continue to impress, solid defensively. And then, of course, after the break, they play at Liverpool, and that they could obviously work their way back into the top four before we know it. And they're on a great run under Mikel Arteta. Don't think any of us would have been predicting that they're in the top four race, but they can keep this up and stay injury-free. I think they're going to be there or thereabouts this season. Obviously, Tottenham drew away Everton and Antonio Conte's first game back in the Premier League. Norwich got a big win at Brentford, and then Aston Villa lost at Southampton. But we're going to talk about Norwich and Villa in more detail next. But remember, on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com, we'll keep you updated all the latest news from around the Premier League, recaps, the schedule, how to watch these games. Week 11 was fun. We've got a bit of a breather now for the international break, but there's still a lot of storylines swirling around the Premier League.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.